Welcome to the 700 Club. Roaring flames, incinerating everything in their path. Savage hurricane-force winds fanning the blazes. 25 million people in California and Arizona now under extreme red flag fire warnings. When could the worst happen? Heather Sells has the terrifying scenario.
More than 25 million people in California and Arizona face red flag fire warnings today. The National Weather Service is trying to highlight the danger by calling it an extreme red flag warning.
Last time we saw conditions like this, hundreds of homes burned, acres were burned, and it ran clear to the west.
One of the biggest problems, hurricane-force winds, especially in Southern California. The National Weather Service says wind gusts could reach 80 miles an hour, the strongest wind event in years.
We're at the time of year where we haven't seen any moisture in our fuel beds for an extended period of time. The fuels are critically dry. They are receptive to new fire as well as fire spread. This dash cam footage shows the moment the blaze broke out along the 405 freeway. Investigators say that high winds broke off a tree branch and it landed on power lines, igniting nearby brush. More than 9,000 people in Southern California are still under evacuation orders. Local churches are sending people to their neighborhood evacuation centers to help and provide encouragement.
There's evacuation centers all over Los Angeles, and it's so wonderful. Our church family has been showing up and simply being present with those that they've never met before, who have been evacuated, and they're bringing water, they're bringing their presence.
And in Northern California, the state's largest utility has begun its third round of sweeping blackouts, hoping to prevent more fires from starting. The worst fire danger from the winds is expected to last through tomorrow, with conditions forecast to ease after that. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Well, in other news, pro-lifers are on trial for exposing Planned Parenthood with undercover video. Officials laughing about making money selling the body parts of aborted babies.
Planned Parenthood is suing the Center for Medical Progress over its undercover investigation. The video evidence allegedly shows Planned Parenthood officials discussing illegal practices regarding fetal tissue. The abortion giant has pushed the judge to keep jurors from seeing those videos. Buying and selling human fetal tissue is illegal in the United States. Federal regulations also prohibit anyone from altering the timing or method of an abortion for the sole purpose of later using the tissue in research. CMP investigators recorded Planned Parenthood officials talking about methods of obtaining organs from aborted babies.
So if we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, it's all just a matter of line items.
And laughing about how much money they can make.
We agreed that $100 would keep you happy.
I want a Lamborghini. I said I want a Lamborghini.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The American Center for Law and Justice is a part of CMP's defense legal team. Executive Director Jordan Sekulow says Planned Parenthood fought hard to keep the videos out of the courtroom, even convincing the judge to keep the jury from seeing them, until their attorneys made a fatal error.
Ultimately, Planned Parenthood made the fatal flaw of bringing up one of the defendants here to testify. She testified very clearly about why she did what she did, going undercover to expose potential criminal activity by Planned Parenthood.
That opened the door for the videos to be shown in court.
Everything changed when the jurors saw those videos and then had to hear not just from the defendants in the case who did the undercover investigative work, but they heard from the abortionists themselves about joking about making money or getting a Lamborghini from selling babies' body parts after the babies had been aborted.
Sekulow emphasizes the trial is also about free speech and protecting those who speak out on behalf of the unborn.
We also have to fight for pro-life speech. And this is one of those issues where you are fighting for just pro-life speech, for the ability to get out good investigative journalism, which is done all the time, without issue, unless, of course, it's the abortion industry who you are trying to investigate, and suddenly the courts start treating them differently.
Sekulow says if the jury rules against the defendants, they could have to pay financial penalties in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The trial is expected to continue into November, possibly wrapping up around Thanksgiving. Mark Martin, CBN News.
And a trial to watch indeed. Pat?
I'm happy to report that my granddaughter, Christy Steerhoff, is the one who was in court and who caught them on that and who got that because they were trying to, the judge in that case, they've tried to recuse him, but he won't be recused. But his wife is a strong supporter of Planned Parenthood. And there's a gag order been put on this whole trial. And until the trial began, and it's just amazing what's happened, but they are the ones that brought in the defendant, and they try to put them on the stand. And having done that, then my granddaughter began to say, well, all right, Your Honor, they opened the door to this other testimony, and we have an absolute right to cross-examine this particular witness, and we have a right to show the jurors.
And show the video.
To show the video, and that's what it does. Yeah. So I got a pretty good granddaughter, amazing. And I'm really proud of her. Ephraim.
Pat, a resolution establishing guidelines and procedures for a House impeachment investigation puts one of the president's biggest critics in the driver's seat. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff will have power to call public hearings and to oversee the witness list. The resolution says Republicans can suggest subpoenas and witnesses, but Democrats have the final say. The measure also includes wording on due process rights for the president. Speaking on Fox News' Hannity program, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham had harsh words for the resolution.
In the history of the country, we've never had the Intelligence Committee participate in an impeachment inquiry. Under the resolution they're going to pass tomorrow, the President's counsel cannot participate in the Intel Committee inquiry, so the President's denied right to counsel, and Republicans can't call witnesses without Schiff agreeing, so this whole thing is a sham.
One House Democrat says he is not likely to vote for the resolution. New Jersey Representative Jeff Van Drew says he's skeptical there's enough evidence to impeach the president and not enough votes in the Senate to convict. Again, that resolution should be voted on tomorrow. Pat?
This whole thing is outrageous. Imagine the chairman of the committee will not permit certain questions to be asked of witnesses. He selects all of the witnesses. And the Republicans really have no voice in selecting the witnesses, nor are they allowed to question freely the witnesses. It's just an outrage. And ladies and gentlemen, I've said it before, I'll say it again, there is no way that these Democrats will dare to vote impeachment, to vote a bill of impeachment, because they will have to stand before the voters not in December, but it'll be January, February, and March. And the voters will say, well, what did you do about health care? What did you do about infrastructure? What did you do about balancing the budget? What did you do on these crucial foreign policy issues? What did you do? And they'll say, we did nothing but impeach the president, and it was a quixotic effort because we knew the Senate would never vote to impeach him. The whole thing is a sham, and I don't know why the press keeps putting these headlines out like it's something important. They're not going to vote impeachment. Trust me, they would not dare to do this because they cannot stand before the American people with this nonsense, knowing that the Senate is not about to turn on the president and vote him out. They will not do that. And so all this impeachment stuff is nothing but press to try to drive down the president's poll numbers. And what Lindsey Graham and others said is absolutely right. And the Republicans are united in the Senate, and they need 67 votes to impeach, and there is no way that it's going to happen. So
even if all 45 Democrats, plus the 2 independents that usually vote with them, they'd still need 20 Republicans.
Exactly.
And most of those, well, all of them right now are with Lindsey Graham on this resolution.
Of course they are. He has a resolution, and they have, I mean, they signed on to it. So there is no way. I mean, and it's a tenuous thing to start with. I mean, he had some a telephone call, and was it a good call or a bad call and so forth. But I mean, that's not enough to high crime and misdemeanor. And the United States Senate will not do it. So it is an exercise in futility, and it is the American people need to say to these congressmen, look, we've paid you your salary, get your job done. We've got to see about infrastructure. We've got to see about balancing the budget. We've got to see about foreign affairs. Do your job and stop this nonsense. Ephraim.
Pat, we turn now to the United Kingdom, where the political upheaval over Brexit continues. Tuesday, Parliament approved a general election for December 12th. That could bring in a whole new government. But Prime Minister Boris Johnson is willing to take the chance to end the nation's Brexit paralysis. Dale Hurd reports now from London.
Brexit opponents have finally agreed to a general election.
Labour backs a general election because we want this country to be rid of this reckless and destructive Conservative government.
This might be called a general election, but it is, of course, a second referendum on whether Britain will leave the European Union, and if it leaves, how. Opinion polls give Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservatives the lead, but the election may not give either side the majority needed to break the deadlock.
The Conservatives would probably win, but not with a very big majority, actually. And it's always possible, remember what's happened to British politics in recent times, that we'd hold a general election, and then, miracle of miracles, we'd end up with another hung parliament with no one party in control.
Johnson, who has vowed to take Britain out of the European Union one way or another, accused his opponents of sabotage by delay.
They just want to spin it out forever till the 12th of never, Mr. Speaker. And when the 12th of never eventually comes round, they'll devise one of their complicated parliamentary procedures and move a motion for a further delay and a further extension then, Mr. Speaker.
What do we want? Brexit! When do we want it? Now!
Voters are fed up after more than 3 years of Brexit drama, and it will be a very grumpy Britain that will vote December 12th. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
This one's far from over. Pat?
Well, we're sorry to see our British friends in this kind of dilemma, but the truth is the bureaucracy in the European Union is stifling, and the Brits have every reason to want to have the Commonwealth taken out of that. But at the same time, they have to have an agreement as to what they'll do, how they'll have cross-border trade and all this other. And the European people have agreed to something, so now they're waiting on the British Parliament to go along with what seems to be a fairly good deal. And it's amazing, but it is, it's theater. I mean, they just insult each other with
They're quite entertaining. But you think Brexit is going to be good for Europe and the world?
Absolutely. I think it's time that, you know, bureaucracies are stifling to free enterprise, and they're unelected bureaucrats over in Europe who are controlling the flow of trade and commerce and all the rules. You know, bureaucrats love to impose rules on people. That's what they do. They like to pass regulations and make life hard for the average citizen. So the Brits are saying, we're tired of this, we want to come out. Well, good for them, but they've got to get together, and there has to be an agreement with the European Union if they're going to pull out, because, you know, just trade back and forth. What do they do with Northern Ireland? What does the other part of Ireland do? I mean, how does British, you know, they've got a Commonwealth and Australia, Canada, and so forth. How does this all fit in? And I think that they claim to have made some kind of a deal. And now it's the British Parliament that's dragging its feet, and Boris Johnson has a right to be upset.